flawless in their gameplay. Their commentary gets an A. So boys, girls, black, white, brown, and blue, if you're kind and you're respectful too, then we would like to welcome you to Misadventureland.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Misadventureland Games Show. My name is Bobby, and I'm here with Stephanie Cooke.
Hello.
Hello, Stephanie. I'm doing great.
It's been a long time since we've podcasted together.
It's true. I mean, I get what is now a year and a half. Was it almost? Yeah, it's like a year and a couple months since the Talking Comics April Fool's Day show or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, Stephanie and I, for those who don't know, who are, I guess, listeners of Misadventureland and not previous podcast ventures, Stephanie and I were on a comic book podcast together for many, many years. Yeah. And hundreds of 3 or 4 years, hundreds of episodes.
Yes.
of a podcast. And we haven't done a podcast together. We've done one podcast together in the last, I don't know how many years it's been.
Yes.
6 years?
Like a really long time.
Like a really long time.
We've talked about doing podcasts.
We have,
and then it's just not really come to fruition as of yet because we both like to accumulate projects.
Yes, lots and lots of projects. And also every idea that Stephanie and I there are a million podcast ideas Stephanie and I could do together.
Yes.
That would take very little lift to do. But the ideas that we always sort of like center on are ideas that would take us many, 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 many hours to do.
We started with the best of intentions where we were like, all right, let's do something low maintenance, it doesn't have to be whatever. It's just like banter. It's fun. It's an excuse to hang out. And then it quickly devolved into what kind of serial drama could we like professionally produce, record, like upload. And that's why you haven't heard a podcast from us.
It's true. Yes.
We have no chill, and we can't decide on the thing that we would do. So Justin Townsend, who no stranger to this podcast, says in the chat, neither of you can do anything easy, and that's very, very true. Can't. It literally turned into we went to the idea like it's still a very good idea, and I think somewhere in both of our heads it exists in a place that it maybe could happen one day. Yes. But it got to the point where Stephanie was like, I can try to sell this to somebody and they could pay us to do it. We had not literally done a thing yet. We had like the idea, like a very rough concept of what we wanted to do, but we had not done any like work yet.
No.
I have no chill and I have big ambitions and I'm like, go big or go home, which is hilarious given the fact that I just am home 24/7 now, basically. So the only option is to go big, really.
Yeah, you got to go big.
I'm already home. So,
yeah. That's the other saying. If you're home, just go big. That's the other saying. Yeah.
You might as well. There's nothing left for you to do. What is it like? Eat nuts, kick butts, and I'm all out of nuts. It's like that.
That's right. Exactly. It's just like that. It's just like that. So So Stephanie did this podcast for a long time together. And now Stephanie is a comic book writer in her own way. You're like a full-time professional writer now.
Yeah. Oh my God. Look here. This is conveniently. What? This was conveniently located next to the stapler that was propping up my ring light until it crashed down just before the show started. So,
Yeah,
now I have graphic novels of my own, which is wild to think about.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's been a journey, Bobby. This has been a journey.
Absolutely. It's been a journey. I mean, when we first started talking again, you were just sort of like, you were talking about some of these projects that are just coming out now.
Yes. Yeah. And graphic novels, as many of you know, probably like games, take forever to make. Like the writing portion is a big component, but not even remotely compared to the art side of thing, which just takes ages. And Paranorthern just came out, the book I was holding up, and I sold that in fall 2018. And it just came out now. And that's still a pretty quick turnaround, I'd say. But, they take forever. And you just sit around and kind of twiddle your thumbs once like the like writing part's done, and you're like, when's it gonna get here? When's it gonna get here? So all you can really do is talk about things until they all of a sudden exist, and then you can have a panic attack about them existing.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin says you come a long way from those business cat strips on Talking Comics.
I love Business Cat.
Justin, who obviously hosts this podcast with me and help and does all this stuff with me, was actually a listener of Talking Comics before he was ever on a podcast. So he also knows Stephanie from way back. This is so today I said game show. It's gonna be this show's gonna have a mix of things today. We're gonna talk about some games we've been playing and stuff like that. But we're also going to talk about some comic book related stuff. It would be weird to have Stephanie on here and not talk about comic book related stuff, even though Stephanie doesn't really read too many comics anymore.
I mean,
more than probably I read, but
just like in bursts. And I definitely don't read like single issues like we used to.
Yeah.
I think about I totally interrupted you, but like I think about the output of what we've read on a weekly basis to talk about, and it blows my mind. Like, it makes my brain tired just thinking about how much we consumed and we're absorbing. You know, like it's actually bananas to me. Also, where is this chat? Am I like not seeing? Is this like not on my end? You're like Justin says, and I'm like,
you have to be on the. I'm looking at the Twitch chat, Stephanie.
Oh, okay,
but you can see it too if you go to twitch.tv/misadventureland. You can see it and react. Yeah, well, it's on the channel, so it's plugging my own channel while I'm on it.
Okay, whatever.
Yes, you can go on your phone or whatever as well, and you can look at the chat. But I'll communicate messages to you when I could. Megs is here. She says hello. Byron is here. He says hello. A new friend of ours from the streaming world, Makima, is here. She also is a Canadian. So yeah.
We can bond over that one person we know that everyone knows in Canada, or you know.
Makima heard Canada and came running back. So
yep. Yeah. You got it. It's support fellow Canadians, right?
Yes, the Canadians. The polite group needs to stick together.
I'm always polite and never rude.
Yeah, right. So we're also going to talk about some games. We're also going to talk about What If, the new series on Disney Plus, the new Marvel series, which we now know to be canon, which at one point we thought was just going to be like, oh, it's just a silly little, hey, what could happen? Now they've said, obviously this is multiverse stuff. We got an Eternals trailer that dropped today as well, so we're going to speak on that a little bit as well. Let's start out with some game stuff. I want to talk about, Steph, have you in your busy life writing and tweeting to avoid writing, do you have any time to play video games?
Literally the last 2 days I've been on Twitter very heavily, and I keep thinking to myself, Bobby's gonna text me and scold me for this soon.
I'll just do it publicly. I don't need to do it via Twitter anymore. I mean, I do it privately.
True. And to that, yes, I did have a project I should have been working on instead, but instead I was on Twitter. But coming back to the games portion of things, I've been playing like a lot of my Switch lately. Like summer is kind of my slowdown time. I don't have AC in my apartment. It's very warm and miserable, so I don't tend to spend as much time on the couch, but I've been playing like Switch while I watch reality TV and stuff in the background.
Okay.
So I've been playing Cozy Grove, which is a delight. I don't know who amongst you has played Cozy Grove yet, but it's just like got that like Stardew Valley and like Animal Crossing vibe to it. You're helping spirit bears recover their memories on a very, very haunted island. I love it. And then I was going back and playing, I don't know if you played this at all, Moonlighter.
Yes, I played Moonlighter, yes.
I left it. I'm so bad at like getting halfway through a game and then being like, I'll come back to this later. And then I come back to it and I don't remember how to play it.
Yes, I had that with me all the time.
Yeah, I did that with Moonlighter. I was trying to play that recently. And I think I did a day or two, but I was like, I don't remember what I'm doing. I don't remember what's what. So I've been going kind of back and forth between Cozy Grove and Moonlighter, trying to remember how to play slowly but
Uh-huh.
surely. But Cozy Grove's kind of my go-to, like either over lunch or like dinner, kind of
Hmm.
just sit down and game for a bit and decompress. Because like, sorry, I'm rambling about Cozy Grove a
No, it's
lot.
okay. Ramble. It's fine.
But the reason I actually love it is because like, well, in addition to everything else, is I get so addicted to games so easily, and I can put like 13 hours into a game and be like, yeah, this is fine. I don't need sleep, whatever. But Cozy Grove only has like a certain number of hours, like playable hours. Like you can really only have like an hour of quests kind of a day.
Hmm.
So you don't put a ton of time into it unless you're decorating or kind of fixing up your island. So I really like that aspect of it where I don't need to put a ton of time into it to feel like I'm making progress. So
Right. Yeah. Makes total sense.
I,
Yeah.
I really enjoy that aspect of it where I feel regulated in it and I'm not, you know, overplaying.
Hmm. I totally
What
get
about
that.
you, Bobby? What are you playing?
What have I
Yeah.
been playing? You asked me, Stephanie.
Yeah,
Um,
it was a great segue
th-
to me. I
yeah,
might
yeah,
add.
what? Yeah, absolutely. So Hades came out on Game Pass, and on
Ah,
PS4, PS5 as well. But I played it.
but you were playing Hades
I played Hades on
before.
PC. Listeners probably know it was our game of the year last year.
Mhm.
Love the game. I had it on PC, and as such, I don't really love sitting in here with a controller and playing games on my computer, mostly because I'm sitting at a desk all day for work.
Yeah.
Now that it's on now that it's on Game Pass, I started playing it again, and I am once again obsessed with Hades. Um,
I love it. I played it on
mhm.
Switch when because like it was like what Steam and Switch were the first
Yeah,
two,
yeah,
so I was on the Switch playing it, and it's maybe one of the only dungeon crawlers that I think I've ever really gotten into. Like it's punishing at
hmm,
first, but it's so specifically what I love that I couldn't not be invested because I had that great
yeah,
story. The character designs are so
hmm,
cool. And again, Greek mythology is like, oh, hello. This was made
yeah,
for me? What? And so it's hard for me to not have gotten invested in that. Like my partner was watching me play and I was so angry. I'm just like, ah. And he's like, don't play anymore. And I'm like, no, I want to unlock the story. Like, what are you, a monster? Like, come on.
yeah,
And it's just so good. And I love that even after you play it and beat it a zillion times, it still feels like it's fun and worth kind of just checking out over and over
yeah,
again.
absolutely. And I think that like, um, it's been interesting because I've had to like kind of like get back up to where I was on the PC version, like as far as like things unlock. I had to unlock everything again. I had to like I had to up my up all the things in the mirror, the darkness mirror and everything. But
Yeah.
I'm finally like getting to the point where I'm now getting to the third boss every time. The last like 3 or 4 runs I've gotten to the third boss. Nearly beat them the last 2 times I've played them. So I'm like getting close. And I'm just every day I'm playing like a couple of runs because I'm just like in it,
Yeah.
and I'm like really excited to play it, and it's been like really really fun to do it. And I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's like especially early on, I'm only comparing it to Cozy Grove in the sense that I had a limited time to kind of play it. Sometimes I was still at my day job when I was going through it at the most, and I was like, oh, I'll take a little bit on my lunch and I'll do a run through on Hades. And it was one of those games that I could play for a little bit and then put down. Like it wasn't like it is kind of addicting
Hmm.
to play, but like at the same time it can get really frustrating if you sit with it for too long. So it's kind of better in those short bursts. So, well, at least for me at times. So I don't know. I just like really enjoyed going through. I've been tempted to start a new save file, but I feel like it would make me very angry all over
Yeah,
again.
I mean, I'm definitely better at it, like just the base version of the game now than I was back when I first started it. So I was able to get farther and do more than I was originally. And it's been nice because like because I had all the weapons unlocked, I was kind of able to like just try out weapons that I hadn't tried out. I hadn't played a lot with before. Like I played a lot more with the shield. I didn't play a ton with the shield when I was first playing. And like I know more now, so I'm like not giving multiple of that, like, whatever that stuff is, like elixir or whatever it is. I can't remember what it's like. It's giving my brain right now. To the same person, which I didn't know what, like, I think you shouldn't do at first. So now I'm spreading it around, stuff like that. I'm I've got 3 death defiances now, and I'm like, I'm making my way there. So, and I just unlocked the gun. So I just unlocked the gun now. So the Daddy Hades is gonna go down soon. I'm gonna beat him soon.
It's such a great game, and I just so good. There's so many good Greek mythology related things right now that just they have my number.
It's been a lot of fun getting back into it. I've also been playing before Justin left for Disney, we were playing the Ascent with our friend Andy, and that has been fun. It's like a twin stick shooter, but it's also like an RPG. It's fun. It's a fun game. It's like cyberpunk, but it's like the buggiest game I've played in a very long time. It's so many crashes and weird like hiccups with the multiplayer that I know they patched it since we stopped playing it, so hopefully when we go back it's a little more stable. But it was like one of the things where like we would never be able to get a lot of momentum up playing the game, even though we're really enjoying it, because it kept like crashing out, which wasn't great. It's on Game Pass, so I mean, whatever. I didn't pay any money for it.
That reminds me, I did like a little thing for a Q&A for Oh My Gods, and this little girl had the most heartbreaking question. She was so sweet. She was drawing the whole time, but then she was like, basically like, what do you do when like a company kind of exploits like the artists, and like basically, like for instance, your dad works for like a video game company and he worked on this really cool game, and it's like a really cool game and it was supposed to be really big and has this cool story, but like then it came out too soon because the executives like just like pushed it out, and it like went viral for how bad it was, how buggy it was, and like it wasn't the artist's fault. And I was like, oh no, is this poor kid talking about Cyberpunk? Did her dad work on Cyberpunk? And it felt so bad for this kid. And she was so sweet. She was just like, I just wish people would give it a chance. My dad worked really hard on it. I was like, oh,
sad. It's very sad. Oh, the kitty has made an appearance.
I've got a cat.
The thing about Hades, obviously, my crush on Megara has resurfaced because I've been playing the game again.
It's wild. They must have did it intentionally to make her sound like Megara from like Hercules too, right? Like that has to have been intentional.
I mean, maybe, I don't know.
She sounds so much like her. Oh. It's extremely hot, but okay. I definitely need...
If you are watching the video version of this podcast, you're missing out on some cat action right now.
Yeah, she's about to like love on my headphones you just watched.
And then just aforementioned Andy and I have been going through some going back through Game Pass a little bit, and like we've been playing Wolfenstein Youngblood, which is like a co-op Wolfenstein game with like BJ Blazkowicz's 2 teenage daughters. That game has been fun. The shooting is fun and stuff like that, but it's a little bit repetitive and not amazing. So that's really what I've been playing. I finished Death's Door since the last time. Death's Door is awesome. Death's Door is like a sort of like isometric, like top-down, like Zelda-like type of game where you play as a little crow who is like a reaper, and he goes to get a soul, and right before he gets the soul, it gets stolen from him. So he has to go on this adventure to try to like find the soul that was lost, because as long as he's in the mortal world, he ages and can die. And it's got like, some really, really good boss design, and it looks great and it sounds great. And I found it to be really, really satisfying and good. And just like it says in the chat, it's definitely a game of the year contender. It's got really great atmosphere, and it has a neat end game too after the last boss that I think is really, really worth it. So
what's this
Death's
one called again?
Yeah, it's on Xbox.
Okay, this sounds very up my
Xbox
alley.
and PC. So right now. I know you have one of those things, Stephanie.
I do in fact have one of those things. I'd probably play it on Xbox, although I suspect my Xbox has 7,000 gigabytes of updates to do because I haven't turned it on for like a few months. But I'll have to check that out.
Very, very good. Very, very, very good.
Almost fall.
Very, very good.
I will be going back into, video game mode as Canada gets cooler and I don't want to go outside as much. So, oh my God, Kaylee, it is so hot. Just, can I put you down now? The cat just does not want to be put down. Oh, she's going to bite me. Okay, this is fun. This is good time.
This is the Stephanie podcasting experience, 100%. 100%.
We'll never forget that goddamn review, which I bring up, I feel like, every time for Talking Comics, that was literally on iTunes and just said, "We get it, Steph, you like cats."
People are very nice leaving reviews on a free thing that they get.
Like, honestly, what did you expect? You could listen to another show. And now I'm covered in cat fur. Thank you, Kaylee.
There you go.
I feel like she just wanted me to experience what she's experiencing right now.
We get it, Stephanie. You have a cat, okay? Let's move on.
I know. I am a cat now.
So yeah, that's been my video gaming in the last couple of weeks since last time we did this podcast. I play like a bunch of random stuff, like just a nice little Apex Legends. Oh, I played some of that Splitgate game, which is like this free to play multiplayer shooter, which is like Halo meets Portal. It's essentially like Halo multiplayer, but you also shoot portals and you can go through them to navigate the environment. Yeah, it's cool. It's fun. It had a lot of trouble when it first launched because like they apparently were like they had planned with their server load to be like, oh, this will be fine as long as like not more than like 20,000 people at a time are trying to play it. Because the game's been out like in early access and stuff for a long time and it never really caught on too much. They put it out on console and re-released it on Steam, and 700,000 people were trying to play it at the same time. So the game completely just wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. You couldn't log on. It was causing this issue on PlayStation where it would try to sync its trophies to the PlayStation Network and couldn't do it because it couldn't connect to the server, and there technically was no like entry for it in the server. So in your PlayStation would just hang for like forever from it. And a lot of stuff. They fixed it. They instituted a queue system and they've started to spin up more servers. It's been way more popular than I think they really ever thought it was going to be, but it's fun.
Which is like amazing. You want your game to be popular, but then it's also when you're not prepared for it. I'm sure it's a lot of overtime and panic and scrambling. So it's maybe slightly anxiety.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like one of those things where it like we the last like 2 years pretty much have been full of games that the developer I don't think thought they were going to be particularly popular and then got gigantic. I mean, Among Us obviously is like the biggest one. It was out for like 2 years and then all of a sudden it became the biggest game in the world, at a point where at one point with Among Us they were like, nobody else can play right now. Like the server. Well,
I think I still haven't played it, but I feel like it became a really big thing in my social feeds and stuff, especially during the pandemic.
It was huge during the pandemic, yes.
So I feel like, again, I never got around to playing, but there was a lot of people that be like, oh, we should have like an Among Us night. And I'm like, cool. Yeah, I totally know how to play that game. Like,
it also became very big. It's one of these games where there's this like subset of games that are so popular that you never hear about them. Like that so many people play them, but they're not the type of people who hang out on social media and talk about video games or work at video game websites, or there's the kind of games they don't play. And Among Us is like, I think now in that echelon of games where it's not in like the zeitgeist of like gamers who are playing, but it's one of the things where like little kids love Among Us. Like you go on YouTube and there is like a million Among Us inspired songs that have like millions upon millions and millions of views. They sell a ton of merch. And there's like, it's crazy. I mean, there's a set of games, like having a 3-year-old now, I like see this a lot, which there's like Among Us is one of these things. There's this game called Friday Night Funkin', which is like, which is like a rhythm game. It's like a very difficult rhythm game that has like these sort of like cell shaded cartoon characters that is ridiculously popular in like the YouTube world. But no one like outside of wherever have heard of it. There's like, it's crazy. And then there's stuff like Five Nights at Freddy's, these are horror games, but Hello Neighbor, a lot of these are horror games, but they have lore and stuff, and their characters move into other spaces where like, oh, there's like this like kids video that's on, but there's like a Five Nights at Freddy's character in it. And so my son is like, oh, Dad, that's Freddy Fazbear. And I was like, how the hell do you know who Freddy Fazbear is? And he's like, oh, he was in this whatever video I was watching. It's wild. It's completely wild. It is nuts. It's a whole other like subset of gaming culture and like the breadth of gaming. Like something like Roblox. Roblox is something that nobody who ever talks about games ever talks about, but they just had like a public offering and it was like $10 billion or something.
Oh, actually, there was like an investigative journalist piece that went up today on YouTube about their exploitative use of
creator-owned stuff.
Developers. I started watching it, but it was like 25 minutes long, and I didn't know enough to kind of like follow the whole thing. But the comments were very supportive and said it was great investigative journalism.
Yeah, Roblox is a thing where it's like all made by people. Like it's like a game creation tool that people make games in, and it looks like crappy Legos or whatever, but it is one of the most like popular games in the world. It's one thing that nobody talks about it, but it's hugely popular. You know, I mean, like Minecraft is now one of these games as well, which is like, as gamers, like we know Minecraft a lot more, but it was still like the 4th best selling game of the year this year, and it's been out for however many years. So it's one of those things where they're just giant games. So yeah, and it's just the stuff where like I just get exposed to it because I'll just wake up in the morning and my son will be laying in bed next to me watching some random YouTube video, and I'll be like, what is this?
Unless, again, not to bring up my cat again, unless my cat starts watching YouTube and is like, here's like these oddly specific videos that, are related to video games. I don't really have that. My YouTube is a different experience.
My YouTube is destroyed. My YouTube algorithm is completely destroyed by my son. It's just like, it's just a ton of that stuff. And also like, people don't have kids. There is also a whole world of YouTube like creators who just make videos for kids, and there's a breadth of them. There's ones that just like there are 7 bajillion videos of people opening toys and being like, oh, look at this toy, and putting it down. Look at this, like that's all they do. They don't play with the toys. They just go like
toy ASMR, like wish fulfillment.
Yeah, basically is what it is. Because like they'll be doing it and my son will go like, Daddy, what do you think we're gonna get? And then they'll open the toy up and then it'll be like, oh look, it's a Captain America, like, vinyl Funko Pop or whatever. How
did people discover that this was a thing? Like, I just have so many questions where they were like, you know what? I think today we're gonna try some unboxing. We're just gonna show some toys in a surprising way, by just holding them up to the camera, and we're gonna see how that goes. Like, I feel like it had to have been an accident, and then somebody realized, oh, there's like an audience for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then like there is this kid named Ryan. There's a thing called Ryan's World, where it's just this kid and his family, and they just do stupid shit. And it's terrible production values, all this stuff. They sell merchandise in like Walmart and Target and everywhere now. It's insane. And the kid's like a millionaire now. It's just nuts. There's a whole, and this is like the most, there's so many of them. It's just insane. Anyway, as we go farther and farther off a field, let's talk a little bit about the comic book stuff we were going to talk about. Let's start out with the Eternals trailer, which just dropped this morning. I woke up in the middle of basically in the middle of the night, because I woke up and Hugh had already posted in my Discord that the trailer had come out.
Yeah. and like this is kind of just like the world premiere of Shang-Chi just happened
Yes.
like earlier this week, and now they're dropping this.
Yes.
And yeah, I woke up to this text
Yes.
from you basically because I slept in today.
Basically, I saw the trailer, and there's like a list of like 5 people in my head who I immediately send said trailer along to, and you were one of those people. So so what did you think of, we already had one teaser, right, which kind of just it kind of showed off sort of some of the vistas and the actors, and gave like a kind of a very basic idea of like
aesthetic. Like it was like a mood board. I feel like it was like, here's the look, here's the ambitious new kind of feel we're going for in this movie. And I think that was a really important thing to establish in that teaser, to be like, you are not getting a new Spider-Man. This is not like, this is an elevated MCU film. This is not what's come before. So I think it was a really important thing to set before they kind of released a full trailer. But I really enjoyed this different kind of angle of, you know, superhero movies within the MCU. I think it looks beautiful. I think that was like the first thing I sent you. I was like, holy, like this looks beautiful. And you were like, the people or the scenery?
Both.
Both. But I think the thing that really struck me more so was, in fact, the scenery, and just kind of like the imagery that they're trying to present with the movie. Like, it felt so different from everything else that we've seen before. You know, like, obviously, we've heard about how, like, how much CGI is in them and blah, 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 blah. And you can tell that they're using nature here. Like Kevin Feige?
Feige. It's definitely Feige.
Was saying, we were talking about, you know, obviously there's CGI in here too, of course, but they are also very much using the landscapes around them, and it feels more cinematic, I think, than the other films that have come before. Does that make sense?
I mean, there definitely is like I don't want to say this is like to degrade the people who have directed the other movies at all, but there is there is more of an classically epic quality to the way the movie looks than previous Marvel films. Like, obviously other previous Marvels have had epic things in them, and obviously, but when we talk about like epic in the movie terms, or in like the classic term as far as film goes, for being like Lawrence of Arabia, like those type of like big vistas, like shot on location things that sort of bring a different scope and look to the actual film itself. And
yeah, like, I just think it has a different vibe to it in that sense too. Like, it feels like they're catering to a new audience. They're like, oh, you don't take Marvel seriously? Let's show you what we can do. Like, we're going to bring, you know, the cinematography. We're going to bring these riveting performances. We're going to bring these landscapes and this scenery and all these things, you know, to the forefront. And it just felt so incredibly different, but in a good way. You know, like, I can see how it's still a Marvel film. I can see those kind of concepts there, but it does feel like an aside to everything else. And I'm into that. Like, I think it looks like, I'm excited to kind of maybe have, I'm sure it's tied in somewhere, because Marvel
it's 100%,
can't
it's 100% tied in.
I know, but like, you know, like, watching it, you're like, oh, is this like maybe standalone? Yeah. Can I just enjoy this without all the... I'm gonna see everything else too, you know, like, I just do. But in some way, like, some part of me is just like, let these things exist. Yeah,
absolutely. And I tell you, I think, I mean, we're in a good spot right now for that anyway, because things have sort of restarted in a way, you know. We're leaving behind, like, not all the old characters, but a lot of the old characters, and we're starting to, like, kick off a bunch of new potential franchises, and potential films, both with Shang-Chi and with the Eternals, obviously, you know, moving forward. I think that, I think that you obviously see the Marvel influences, because that like the Stinger or whatever is like a very like Marvel, like don't worry, there are jokes in here too, like when he breaks the table or whatever, you know. It's very like it's very like, you know, oh, you know, it's like the Wi-Fi password joke from Doctor Strange or whatever, you know. It's got like, it has those vibes to it. But I think what Marvel has been criticized for in the past, obviously, and this goes back more, I think, like phase 1, phase 2 time more than later on, but that they would bring in directors and some directors would leave because it would basically be like, you got to do it this way. Like you have freedom, you know, all the directors who work there and like it said, like, you have freedom, but there is like a guideline you have to follow. You can't just do whatever you want. And it feels a little bit more like with especially, you know, looking at the TV shows as evidence and then now moving into what this looks like. And there's apparently we've heard very positive early word of mouth on Shang-Chi. Obviously no official reviews or anything have come out yet, but that they hired, you know, Chloe Zhao, and she was able to do the movie have the movie look and feel the way she wanted it to feel, you know. And Feige has talked about this in interviews before. He said, like, look, we understand, like, we've been doing this for X amount of years. It has to keep changing in some ways in order for people to keep coming back and still watching it and it not get stale, right? It's
like the Fast and the Furious.
You know, so, and I think this looks like one of those things, right? Obviously, we haven't seen it yet. We don't know what the content of it is yet, but from the trailer, you know, that's there. And there's also, I think, the sort of hints at what they've always kind of said about this section, which is going to be a little bit more cosmic, a little bit more out there. We're seeing the Celestials and all that kind of stuff here. And they answer the question in the trailer about why they didn't do anything when Thanos was around, all that kind of stuff. Because that was like a lot of everybody's question after that first teaser was, well, what the fuck were they doing when they were wiping out half the universe or whatever? And we got to get that answer, right? And it feels like we've definitely got one of those situations where I think we're going to have like, oh, like the Eternals and the people they're fighting, maybe they're not so like different, you know. I think that's going to be like that's definitely, I get that feeling, because if someone was telling them not to fight but only fight these things, it feels like it was like, you know, it was not in the up and up, let's just say. But I'm kind of interested to see, you know, these actors like, you know, Angelina Jolie, who looks fantastic, and, you know, Salma Hayek, who also looks fantastic, Richard Madden looks fantastic, Kit Harington, all these people in it, and how they're going to sort of, how their characters are going to integrate and how their characters are going to sort of like bring new wrinkles to the world we already know, because they seem very powerful, right? And Marvel has been very like, not shy, but has definitely been very measured in how they like produce very, very highly powered characters and how they handle them sort of like in their sort of main storytelling sort of milieu, right? That's why you set Captain Marvel in the 90s, because you can't have like basically Superman coming in at this point, or it's going to blow up the entire dynamic of the story you've been telling for 10 years or whatever.
Well, I think this is interesting in a lot of ways too, because the Avengers obviously was a build-up, you know, that was like, we met all the characters, we got their stories, except for Black Widow, and it kind of just like grew over time. And then by the time the Avengers came, they could focus on the story and them coming together. But we have this ensemble film where we're not really familiar. Well, the larger world isn't really familiar with these characters up front. And they're going to have to do a lot of world building for each person. And then also for as the Eternals as a collective, right? And them coming together. So I'm really curious about, I mean, obviously it's not impossible to
of course
do,
not.
But, and it's been done before, people make ensemble films work. But I just think kind of in the world of like the MCU here specifically, there's been a formula to how they get to these big epics. And we're really just being dropped into this here and seeing what's going to happen. So I'm curious. I'm excited and curious. I think this is maybe one of the ones that I'm more excited for than anything else, just because it seems so new and different to me.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And the trailer was great. I mean, I watched the trailer and I was like, I was excited for the movie after the trailer was over, you know? And that's what the trailer is supposed to do, and it's definitely what it did. My real only question is, and this goes for Shang-Chi too, which is coming out in like 2 weeks or whatever, is I don't know how I'm gonna see it because I don't want to go sit in a movie theater right now with how everything is.
Yeah, so that's the thing, because like it's bizarre too, because Simu Liu is like he's from Toronto, like he's like Toronto people, and like we're in our fourth wave. I am not going to the theater. Like theaters are at capacity as is, but they've said that they will only release it theatrically. And I feel bad because like I feel like with Black Widow and with this, they're kind of setting them up to fail, because like then people can be like, well, they did crap me, like what people said with Birds of Prey, you know, like, well, it was the start of a pandemic. Of course people didn't go to see it in the same capacity that they would have had there not been a pandemic. You know, like it's not fair to kind of not add that in. But, you know, we had our first like woman-led film with Black Widow, which obviously didn't go the way Scarlett Johansson wanted, as evidenced by this lawsuit. But at least they did release it. Like I was able to watch it, and I was really grateful that they did that. You know, sorry, ScarJo, I was very happy.
I mean, both can be true, right? You can, you know what I mean?
I know. And I know her qualms isn't that they did it so much as she got cut out of.
Cut out of. Yeah.
So I don't hold you. Good for you. You get your money. But like, I think Shang-Chi is like such a big movie, a historical movie, to have an Asian lead, and Disney is not really promoting it like they should. And again, it's only in theaters. There's no real like backup plan for when this doesn't work. You know, it's not gonna see the same numbers as you would any other time for a summer blockbuster. And I think that's really a shame. I think that's
it is
a disservice to everybody who's working on this.
And I mean, it's this whole thing, and I've talked about this a bunch over this time, but it's this whole thing where I think it's a two-pronged thing. I think that if Disney really, really, really had its druthers, it would be released on Disney Plus. They made so much money. They made so much money off putting Black Widow on Disney Plus. Like it opened to like $90 million in the theater and made like $60 million or whatever on Disney Plus in the same weekend. Like that's crazy. That's huge.
It's $35 here, and I paid
that. It's $30 here, and I paid for it too. And I would pay for Shang-Chi in a second. Like I wouldn't even think twice about paying for it. I think when they made the plan, they assumed that by now everything would be open and normal life would be suddenly back. And at a certain point, they kind of made that deal with the theaters, right? And there's still like this, you know, this relationship between the theater and the distributor that they just like they're scared to piss them off too much, because if things do go back to normal, they don't want them saying like we're not showing your movie, or we're not whatever. So
I think theaters think they have more leverage than they do. At this point in time, you know, we're not going to show, like, again, Trolls 2 last year was like a huge example. Like they made just as much money releasing it directly on demand, you know, like I think these movies are going to do just as well on demand in theaters. I really do love the theater experience. I do think it's an amazing way to see a movie, and especially if that's how it's meant to be seen. And there's just like something special about watching it with other fans and enjoying that moment with other people around you that you obviously can't replicate at home. But I think there's a way for these things to coexist at the same time. You know, I don't think they need to fight each other. And I understand where theaters are coming from. They're part of this big shutdown that's happened during COVID. They want to make money back. Everyone is about the profit. I get it. I do. But I just like don't think it needs to come down to this or that, you know? Like there's a way to keep people going to the theaters while also letting people feel like they can watch things at home. You know, there's a big conversation even for journalists where like they're talking about the fact that Disney is forcing journalists to go see things in theaters and won't give them digital screeners, you know, like You need to stop.
We're in a public health, an ongoing public health emergency. You can't act like, oh, but not people will come to the movie theater if you put it on the streaming service. Like, that's not the point of all of this. Like, I obviously it's too late. And Green says this, and Byron says this in the chat. Like, it's too late for Shang-Chi, obviously, but they are apparently looking at Eternals, trying to figure out like what the plan will be for Eternals when it comes out.
And I wonder if they'll rush it to.
Well, they cut the window in half for the movie. It's 45 days now from they cut it in half. So,
and I saw, what did Dune say? What did
Dennis
Villeneuve, where he was like, what did he say? It's like driving a ski-doo in a bathtub. Is that what he said?
And I just can't take it. I can't take these fucking guys. Like, guys, I get it. You want people to see the movie the best way possible. I get it. I totally understand. I would love to be sitting in a movie theater watching a Marvel movie. I really would. I would love to. And the moment I can go do it and feel safe, I will do it. I will go to movie theater and I will sit there. I will go there opening. I'll go there the night before for like the 8 o'clock, like early screen. I'll be there, some of my best times in a movie theater ever have been watching those movies with a big crowd of people. I would love to do that again.
Yeah,
but
exactly. You can't expect that during a pandemic, when people have families they need to like keep safe, when people have pre-existing conditions and they don't want to get sick or worst case scenario die. Like, this is a life-threatening pandemic. Like, it's a disease. Like, oh, it's awful. And I don't want to harp on that for too long. Obviously we've covered this extensively. I really want to see Shang-Chi. I'm so upset that I can't support it in a bigger way, but like, I'm just not going to go to a theater. Like, I'm not, same with things like, not to derail, but The Green Knight. I was so looking forward to seeing that. And A24 really stuck to their guns and was like, we will not be doing digital releases. Nuh-uh. And like, they did this one, I think it was like this week, actually. They did like the digital thing. And I was like, yes, I'm gonna, not in Canada. No. Not anywhere but the States. So,
that's how the HBO thing is too, right? The HBO Max thing is only in the States, right?
Yeah, and so this drives me actually like nuts. They are forcing people's hands, and they're forcing people to piracy in everywhere but the US, because there's no legal way for us to watch these films. So you can only go to the theaters. Like, basically, okay, for instance, The Witches, I think I was telling you this at some point. The Anne Hathaway remake of the Roald Dahl book came out for free last summer on HBO Max.
Free, for your subscription.
For your subscription. And we have a service here called Crave, which usually gets the HBO Max stuff, and like, it gets premium movies and like blah, 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 blah. They didn't release it to that. They don't release the movies. Here, they have a deal where the HBO Max movies only go to theaters. So we get the HBO Max TV shows, but not the movies.
So no Suicide Squad for you.
The Anne Hathaway movie. Wow. Okay. We'll come back to that. So the Anne Hathaway movie, they didn't even release it on demand until this summer. So there was literally no way for us to watch it except unless you pirated it.
But Alejandro says, but on Crave, thank God you got the Snyder Cut. Stephanie and I talked about the Snyder Cut. Yeah, so like, I mean, what I'll say about that, I mean, the deal with it not being international sucks, but what Warner Brothers did, which they got a lot of flack for, which just said like, all the movies that are coming out this year are just going to be on HBO Max and in the theaters, but they're going to be HBO Max. No, we're not going to like, that was, people give him shit for that move, but it was the right move. Because like, but again, like talking about Suicide Squad, going back to that, I was astounded last week or whatever, when people were talking about the box office of Suicide Squad like it was a normal weekend in a normal time where a movie came out and was disappointing at the box office. Like, I wanted to scream, because like, whereas when I think about the movie, which we haven't talked about on the show, but like, which I think is like, it was good. Like, I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was entertaining. Thought there was some really nice, good parts to it. I think overall not remarkable. But like, regardless of that feeling about, I had a good time.
I don't think I told you.
You didn't tell me you saw it. No, because last time we talked, you said you weren't gonna be able to see it. We'll talk about it in a second then, because I didn't know you'd seen it. I do want to say like the you know the discourse or whatever about it making $25 million or whatever, and that being hugely disappointing, and it sunk a ton this week, and they're blaming like streaming for it or whatever. I just think it's crazy that we're talking about stuff like it's normal. Like it drives me crazy. Yeah. So
I will say, I again saw Suicide Squad, and I will say, as a disclaimer to this, I do not condone piracy in any way, shape, or form normally, but there is no legal way to watch these movies in Canada unless you want to go get panini. Yeah. You don't want we don't have the digital option. It is not, when it comes out, I will buy it. I will buy it. I will watch it. I will support it. I don't have that option right now. So I'm only saying this because we already talked about the fact that it wasn't available legally. So it leaves one way for me to have seen this without going to the theater. But that being said, I will support it. I thought it was fun. And even if I didn't think it was fun, I think it's the right thing to do, to throw money at something that you enjoyed. So that aside, I had a good time watching this. I went in, I didn't watch all of the trailers leading up to it. I think I watched like the initial one, and then I was just like, yeah, I'm in, whatever. I'm going to see this no matter what. And I had a blast. I wasn't expecting it to have as much heart to it. I was kind of just expecting it to be a balls to the wall, bonkers movie. But to me, the thing that I really enjoyed is that James Gunn really gets the assignment. Like, he makes the movies comic booky. There's this scene, and this isn't a spoiler, I promise, but they're at Jotunheim, the place they kind of have to go. And there's a scene where Idris Elba kind of falls down, like down and down and down. And I could visualize that as a panel, you know, the panel breaking and him falling through. And visually, it just feels like a comic book to me. He gets the characters. He knows the camp level needs to be like way up, and he doesn't take them too seriously, which I think is what a lot of like DC's movies have suffered from before, is that, you know, just bleakness. So like Birds of Prey really shook things up and changed the status quo for that. And I really loved seeing that carried over into this too. The scene, for instance, you know, like Birds of Prey really set up that delusional Harley verse where she's just like the hero in her own story and just all this stuff. And there's a scene where she's fighting and she has this javelin that God has given her or whatever. And there's flowers everywhere and little like Disney Tweety birds around her. And I thought that was such a fun scene that really encapsulated Harley so well, and she shines in this movie as she should, and it was just a blast. I think, judging by your reaction, I might have enjoyed it.
You might
more
have,
than
you might have.
But
I didn't dislike it. I it's one of those movies where there are aspects of it I think are fantastic, and one of the things I will agree with you with is like what I loved about the movie was it mixed like Idris Elba's costume and stuff was like badass and like had like was very cool to look at and was like functional and like was more like modern comic book movie aesthetic of like how you translate a comic book costume into a into a movie costume. But then there's like, you know, John Cena's costume, which is like literally like it could have been drawn, you know, in the 60s with 4 colors, you know, or whatever, which I love. Like, I love that mix. Right. And I think that like, and I think you saying he gets the assignment is a perfect encapsulation of what it is. Like there's moments in the movie where they do like comic book, like title pages, like for different chapters. And they're just very aesthetically nice and like,
well, they're like the lettering SFX, like the sound effects that you see where a letterer who really knows what they're doing does it in a cool style. And so that's what those felt like to me. Like, not just those generic, like captions of, oh, now we're in Monaco or whatever.
What it was like to me is like, you know, you're reading like an issue of like let's say like a Batman book or something, and like the title, like the title of the issue isn't like in the first book, but you're reading through it, right? And all of a sudden something happens and you turn the page and like they've like incorporated the title into like the scenery and the character. Like that's what it felt like to me, and I really liked that a lot. I think Elba's like was great. Like it was a very good like charismatic movie star lead performance from him. And I think the whole movie encapsulates the feeling of the Suicide Squad so much better than the first movie did, right? It has a sense of that ridiculousness to it that every Suicide Squad book I've ever read has had in it, you know? Like the people who write Suicide Squad, the ones who are good at it, also understand the assignment, right? They know it's ridiculous. You have to take, like, James Gunn, you know, he takes serious things he needs to take serious, but not the other stuff, right? But I thought, like, you mentioned the heart stuff, and there were hearts of like the flag stuff I just didn't like that much, like his whole storyline. I was like, I don't buy like your whole like redemption arc or whatever. But Ratcatcher 2 was phenomenal. She was great. Her whole story was great, and Polka Dot Man is like MVP of the movie to me.
Oh my god, he was so good. I think I liked them both a lot. To turn this back into the cat podcast, he found a stray cat on set, and the costume designer made a polka dot man suit for the cat with little goggles, and he adopted the cat. And I just obviously I appreciate that, and clearly MVP.
Clearly.
Winner here.
But I mean, there was no performance that was like bad. Everyone was good in it. Like like Cena's very, very funny, and like also understands the assignment in which he is given to do. And like you said, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is like a gift we've been given as comic book movie fans. She's wonderful in it. She is Harley Quinn, but she's not doing like a riff on like the animated series Harley Quinn. Like she is her own version of the character, but keeps sort of like that, you know, feeling. Yeah.
The core.
Like she has like a voice, but she's not going for the really like Mr. J. Like she's not doing like that or anything like that. Like she brings it to her own place. And you know that scene where she like is like chained up and she does that where she like grabs the key? She did that whole thing for real on her own.
I was actually hilariously wondering that, because I knew in Suicide Squad she does her own stunts. Like she went and learned. There's that elevator scene where she runs up and then flips over, and she did that. And so I went into this pretty sure that most of the stunts we would see from her would be her. And like she's just really dedicated to the role. Like you can tell she loves Harley as a character, and she loves playing her. And I felt like they all like encapsulated fun. Like it felt like they were enjoying themselves doing this. So I just enjoyed watching them perform, you know, and it was a good time. It was a good time. John Cena, I was watching again Fast and the Furious this week. I watched F9 on the weekend, and I watched Fast 5 yesterday, and then talked about it for an hour and a half, because that's who I am. But we were talking about how The Rock brings that wrestling campiness to his roles, and that's kind of, you know, like he's not really a good actor. I love The Rock. I love The Rock. He's so fun. Like, I will watch pretty much everything he's in. But he is, you know, like, especially in Fast 5, just like so campy, and he's like so deadpan. Like he's just like, oh, you need an ass whooping? And it's like with the utmost seriousness of like an angry dad who's disappointed in his son, you know, but to criminals. But John Cena brings that to this too, right? Where like he's fun and you can tell he's enjoying this, but he has that like WWE camp to him too, that like I think makes him special. Like it doesn't to me make it like, you know, oh, here's another one of those wrestlers that's crossed over. Like I enjoy that level of like over the topness that you get from him. So I think he was a really fun addition. I don't know so much about the TV show, because like he's getting a spin-off.
Yeah, they've already filmed it.
Show.
Yeah, it's going to be HBO Max thing.
Yeah. So, which I may or may not get here.
So you should get it. We'll see.
We'll see. So I don't know. I enjoyed it. I'm interested, obviously, to see where they go with this. If yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna watch it regardless. But
yeah, and I'll say Peter Capaldi, for the role he's in, is very good.
Oh, yeah, I forgot he was in this,
it's very good. It's good, and I think the action is well like constructed, and it was good. It just was. I really liked Birds of Prey a lot, and for me, like, even though there are things I have things that about like the structure of Birds of Prey that are not my favorite, and like things I'm like, I have criticisms of it, but when I finished Birds of Prey, especially that last like 40 minutes or whatever, I was like, damn, that was awesome. And I didn't have that. I guess I was looking at least for that feeling or more when I saw Suicide Squad, and it got close to matching it for me, but it probably overall is like a better structured story, Suicide Squad, but there was an impact to Birds of Prey, and I think it's also right because it's also always happens with these characters when they're characters there are characters in Birds of Prey that I'm like, I cannot believe, like, obviously there are crazy characters in Suicide Squad, but I don't know those characters. There are characters they do that I do know, right, in Birds of Prey that I'm like, I can't believe they're doing this, even though sometimes I'm like, I wish this was a little bit more like the real comic book version of the character, but like it's so cool that they're doing stuff like this. They're doing Black Mask, and they're it's like and you get this wonderfully like Ewan McGregor also completely understood the assignment in that movie.
Yes.
And
although I fully wish, and this ties into your love of Moulin Rouge, so I know you won't mind me changing this up for like 2 seconds. I fully wished that there was like the musical number that they did was like a full-on Ewan McGregor, like Margot Robbie thing. I was like, yes, Moulin Rouge callbacks. Let's make this whole thing like a dancing, singing number. But then it obviously gets cut off very quickly. But Ewan McGregor understood the assignment.
And the movie itself, right, is because of the team making it, is saying things about toxic masculinity and all that stuff that a lot of these movies aren't saying. Even the movies that are not toxic, a lot of them aren't saying the things that Birds of Prey is overtly saying, which I think is obviously some of the reason why people had problems with it, because people, suck. But I think that like, and I think that Suicide Squad, while it's big and fun, it doesn't have that same voice, right, that Birds of Prey has.
I think so. Obviously, there's going to be those people you mentioned that we're never going to like Birds of Prey. But where I think James Gunn went right in doing this and kind of avoiding that fanboy nonsense is he picks comic book movies to work on that typically don't have that fan base. Like, he's doing the Ryan North Squirrel Girl thing. He's picking characters that people don't care about. And he's like, all right, well, I'm going to do my own version of this, basically. And then making it his own. And obviously, there's a few characters that have history and people they're fan favorites. Harley, obviously, being one of them here. But he definitely, I feel, maybe deliberately chooses characters that he can do his own thing with and not be bogged down by executives and kind of people who are like, but we can't do that with Batman. Like, we can't really do that with him, like, we can't. And so I think it's almost a deliberate, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a deliberate choice to kind of be like, I don't want to play in that toxic sandbox. Like, I want to play in this sandbox. Because, like, realistically, also, Guardians of the Galaxy has been, I mean, it's been a pretty big book, but like prior to the movie coming out, it was definitely not what it is. It's like, it was now.
Like a slight step above the Eternals, which is something that like I've read a lot of comic books in my life. I've never read a single comic book with the Eternals in it. I had maybe read like 1 or 2 comics with the characters from Guardians of the Galaxy in it before it came out. So like people don't remember it was nothing. People were like, what is this? Is this going to work? And then obviously it was what it was.
Yeah, and they were like, oh, this isn't really part of, like, the phase, whatever. Like, this will be... And, I think he thrives on getting to kind of form those personalities for those characters in a way that's meaningful later on. Like, I think that's where he excels. So I think he made a great choice to kind of avoid what has come before for the most part and put his own stamp on this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So yeah,
we haven't even gotten to half.
No,
the
I'm happy that. Well, we only have one thing left to talk about.
Well, yeah, true.
But it was the first thing I said we were going to talk about, and now it's going to be the last thing. But I didn't know you'd seen Suicide Squad, and we didn't get a chance to talk about it on the show because Justin went away. So it's good that we got to talk about it. And we got to talk about Birds of Prey, which is nice. I will say this.
I do also agree that I love Birds of Prey more. But...
Speaking of treasures, Mary Elizabeth Winstead is a treasure and should be in everything. She is fantastic in Birds of Prey.
Yes.
And that is all.
I was saying this to a friend I had coffee with the other day. I really do wish that they had left it a Harley movie and that it was like a prequel to a proper Birds of Prey. Like, I wish they did a post-credit scene like Captain Marvel and they're like, Harley will return in Birds of Prey. And like this was like kind of the prequel, and then all of a sudden you announce the big Birds of Prey movie. Because like the Harley movie doesn't feel like a Birds of Prey movie. The criticism. It feels like they're getting the band together. And so that is how I feel as a whole. Kind of, I think that's my biggest criticism of it. But the film itself, I really love. I think it did such a great job in changing the landscape for DC and being like, oh, you mean we don't need to take everything so seriously all the time? Which, as you know, I am a fan of. Yeah.
So speaking of doing your own thing with characters, Stephanie, let's talk a little bit about Marvel's What If.
Things I definitely watched.
I was like, Stephanie, please watch What If before. And then she goes, like, she texts me on Wednesday. She goes, so am I supposed to watch the second episode as well? And I was like, yes, please watch the second episode.
As I texted you, for some reason, it just like hadn't occurred to me that by the time we would record this, there would be a second episode out. So then I was like, Yeah. You want me to watch this one too?
Yes. I know it's a big ask. There was so What If is, I mean, people aren't familiar with the What If concept in Marvel Comics. It's basically like, just like this, what if Peggy Carter was Captain America? What if T'Challa was Star-Lord? Like, that is basically what they are. They range from like small changes to crazy big changes. And it was like a pretty popular line of books for a while. They haven't really done it in quite a long time. And I
think, correct me if I'm wrong in the books, but they were just what ifs, like there was no canon to them. But then in this, again, as you had mentioned, these are kind of the multiverse since we've introduced that concept to the MCU. So these are the decisions that led to a different path.
Yes. And this is what happens now when there isn't a group of people to prune the extra timelines away, right? So now we're seeing these things, and the Watcher is part of this now. So the Watcher, I mean, we had like a cameo by the Watchers in like one of the Marvel movies. I don't remember if it was Guardians or not. I don't remember which one it was, but with Stan Lee is like talking to the Watchers or whatever. So there was like that thing, but this is like Jeffrey Wright is like voicing the Watcher, and you know, it's so interesting. And so I'll say this right now, spoilers for the end of Loki, because we can't really talk about what this is without talking about the end of Loki in some way. And also spoilers for What If, you know, we're going to talk about the episodes. So, you know, Loki introduced the multiverse. Before that happened, I just assumed What If was like, oh, this is going to be the thing where they have a couple animated like shorts and they're going to like do a season of it and it's going to be fun and like cool. Like we're going to get little like one-off little stories. And I still and then obviously Loki introduced the multiverse. And now they've said like these are all canon, like these are all part of the multiverse. Of course, I mean they're mostly still just one-off stories. I think most of them will be, but I think but they have the potential to come back. Versions of these characters have potential to come back in other places now that it is like officially part of whatever's happening in the larger universe. But really, you only have to have like a basically very basic knowledge of what happened in the movies. To really kind of get what's going on in the episodes. And even then, you don't really need to know. You won't get like the, why is this different part of it if you don't know, you know, the movies, obviously. Yeah. So Steph, give me an overall impression of like the two episodes. What do you think of the animation, the voice acting, you know, overall quality of everything? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah. So I had watched trailers for this at all. So this is another thing I went into blind, but I already knew what the what if concept was. So, I mean, I didn't really need a lot of context to what they were doing. I was like, oh, they're doing a what if TV show?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I know what this is about. So I knew a little bit about the first episode only from Angry Man Babies on Twitter, which, again, the first episode revolves around Captain Carter, Peggy basically coming into her own and taking the serum in place of Steve, and then becoming Captain Carter. And I mean, I really like Peggy Carter as a character. Agent Carter was done dirty, you know, they canceled that well before she was really given a chance to shine. They really found their footing, and then they were like, yeah, no one wants
Is Chad
this,
Michael Murray
which
dead?
sucks.
I need to know.
Just bring it back. Like, you've got Disney Plus now, bring it back. My cat is just hold on. Just stop it. Sorry. But yeah, I think it was interesting. I didn't love the animation at first. Like, it took me a smidge to get into, and like some of the like animation doesn't quite line up with the like voice acting at times, especially early on. But I think it's more like the kind of animation style as opposed to like poor animation
I get you.
in general, if that makes sense. So I really liked the voice acting. Obviously, they brought back the people who played
Nearly everyone is
characters.
back. I mean, it's not Chris Evans voicing Steve. So yeah, but everything else.
But mostly everybody else is there, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, both stories aren't really new stories. Like, they're basically stealing a movie. Like, again, the first one is taking from the first Captain America, and it's basically taking the exact same things from that movie, but putting Peggy in place of that and slightly tweaking them. So in some ways, I think it's a bit lazy. I think, like, you could have given them a much cooler story that was their own. I understand you want to put them in the context of what Peggy would do versus what Captain America did, which I can appreciate, and kind of giving those characters differing ways to approach the situation. And there's a lot where there's a scene where Peggy's like, I'm no longer screaming to be heard. And I thought that was really powerful. But with the second one too, like, it's Star-Lord, but T'Challa, and it's Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought there was like fun spins there. Like, again, basically, what if somebody who wasn't a garbage person was Star-Lord, and it turns out, you know, everyone would love and respect you, I guess.
And you would change, and you would like change the whole like complexion of this like organization, right? That you were a part of. You know,
your good would do good around you, and I thought that was fun. It's hard because on one part of me is like, it feels lazy to just insert them into these pre-existing things, but again, it was fun too. So I'm not too minds.
I think what they said about the first episode was it is intentionally very close to the first Avenger, because they sort of wanted to give people like a slow ramp into the concept, right? Like, they didn't want to change like a billion things off the bat, because they want people to be like, okay, no, I get this concept. Like, oh, it's a and then, I mean, obviously, as the episode goes along, it diverges more and more, to the point by the end, she's fighting like, you know, like Cthulhu and like, and ends up like kind of almost being like taking like the Loki like role, like showing up in the SHIELD facility right at the end, right? Instead of Loki showing up. And I've heard that she's coming back, that she's going to have some other like role in this in this series in some way. The second one, I think what I enjoyed about the second one was that when it started, I was like, oh, they're just gonna be doing the same thing again. Like there's just gonna be like basically the same thing until the very end, then it's be different. But what I enjoyed about the second one is they kind of, after the very beginning where he takes the stone, it sort of starts diverging a lot more, and we get a whole kind of new like you said, like world set, right? It's like the world is completely different than the one that we would have known in the original Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Like, you know,
it's similar,
like
but
Thanos being like chill, you know, and stuff.
Yeah, I did enjoy that, you know. And what is
that sounds a lot like genocide.
What's his name call him? Yeah, Captain Genocide, and he's like, say that to my face. And it really, they had like Emma Frost Nebula too. Yeah, that really threw me off. I didn't genuinely know who that was supposed to be until they were like, oh, Nebula.
Yeah.
And I was
think it is Karen Gillan. It did sound like Karen Gillan's voice, but I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it was her. It did sound like her, but even with that, I was like, I don't know who this is. So there was like a couple things that were like funny.
It was her.
Different.
They but they did something different with their voice, because they didn't. Her voice in the movies is more pitched down and is more like robotic, and this was more sounded like almost more like her normal voice.
Well, she didn't quite have as much of a chip on her shoulder, which I think, you know, she wasn't like
exactly
and, like all of these things to kind of really make her. I mean, she's still Nebula, but like not quite the ruthless monster we kind of see her as at the beginning.
And like there was something, the collector fight was neat. Like I thought that was a neat idea. And Howard the Duck, we got some more Howard the Duck, which was cool. I thought this second episode it felt more satisfying conceptually to me than the first one, even though like I have a deep love for Peggy and like that idea. The fact that it did start to diverge more fully from, you know, from where we were, from where we know, I enjoyed. That's the part I enjoyed about it.
And it's funny because like I have been doing a podcast with my friend. We've been doing the Capercast, which is a heist podcast, which is why I was watching Fast Five this week. But it was funny to watch this after immediately talking about heists with Whitney to then have this heist episode, but, you know, in this What If. And I just keep on finding more and more heist things that I want to talk about with Whitney. So it's very funny. Like my world has now just become heist movies and heist TV episodes and stuff. So also from somebody who's been exploring that genre in cinema, it was very fun to see them explore it in Marvel. Like I could really see them doing something fun in a bigger scale, like with a full-on kind of heist. Because again, like I'm going to bring up the Fast and the Furious 12,000 times, because now this is the Fast and the Furious podcast, actually. But the Fast and the Furious are the best comic book movies that aren't comic books,
right?
You know? And I feel like there's like some fun things that like Marvel and like even DC could like play with that the Fast and the Furious have done. Send a car to space!
Well, Ant-Man is kind of a heist movie.
Yeah. Heist.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
The first one, I think I've only actually ever seen Ant-Man once, so I should actually go back and rewatch
I think it's probably less of a heist movie than it was going to be when Edgar Wright was supposed to direct it, but I still think it was a heist movie. Byron says, may I recommend Inside Man for you for your heist podcast?
We've reviewed it. Like, I'm gonna say quickly that I've discovered Whitney and I have a type, and it is campy and over the top movies. So we were just like, nothing happens in this movie. We liked Inside Man fine enough, but like in terms of like the bonkers stuff that we have been also watching, it was hard.
Sorry, there's no cars that go to space. Sorry, Steph. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, we watched like the Muppets.
This is the most Muppet Stephanie Caper podcast I've ever heard.
Hey, would like to point out, though, that Whitney asked to watch The Muppets, and I was just wholeheartedly yes.
Makes sense.
So, we liked Inside Man enough, but this is besides the point. I think Fast Five might be my famous heist movie.
But anyway, I mean, again, for the second one of the episode, also it's the last time, obviously, we're hearing Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, so that was really nice. Very sad, but it was sweet, obviously. But it was nice that they had that one last thing, that waiting for us.
Yeah. It was surprisingly emotional to see the thing at the end too. Like, I didn't expect it to kind of hit me that hard, and then I was like, this is really
it's very sad. It's extremely sad, and it's like, I mean, I think for a lot of people, when I think it's really gonna it's gonna be very odd when Black Panther 2 starts showing stuff from it. I mean, because it's gonna be a very big hole right in the middle of that thing, and I'm curious how they are addressing it and filling it.
Yeah, actually, not to change the subject, but a quick segue into the other thing you sent me would be good here. There was news announced today about casting from Black Panther, which would lead into the Disney Plus show.
Dominique Thorne, who we already know was playing Riri Williams in the Ironheart show, is going to make her debut actually in Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
Which I think is great. I think that's a great way to introduce her, and I'm gonna guess she
that would be my guess. Well, there's no Tony Stark for her to anymore, right? For her to sort of be a mentee of or whatever. So even if Stark was there, I still think Shuri's the more natural kind of if you're bringing her into Black Panther. Well, obviously Shuri has to be the one that absolutely
brings her into the world and stuff. But I'm excited to see how I didn't read any of the Ironheart comics, admittedly. Again, because I just haven't really read single issues for a long time. I'm a trade waiter, and then I'm awful about getting to the trades that I pick up. My bedside table is a land of nightmares with my TBR pile. But I mean, I know about the character. I know what her deal is, and I'm really stoked. I'm so excited for that. I'm so excited for Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. I'm just give me the thing.
Yeah, and I think when I stopped, she was still in the mainline Iron Man book. That she didn't have the Iron Heart book hadn't had its own separate thing yet. So but she's a really cool character, and I love in the comic book world, I love legacy characters. I just think they're very interesting, and I've always had a soft spot for them. So now that you're able to start doing those things in the movies, which I really never thought would ever happen, because it's a lot of these characters, it takes long enough to establish themselves as their own characters for them there to be characters that spawn out of them in a movie format. I just never really thought that was going to happen. But now we're getting them all over the place. It's going to be 2 years of just just 2 years of legacy characters, basically. We're getting Kate in a couple months, and we get Riri Williams, and a ton. So
I'm excited. I mean, I don't care really about Clint. I really don't. I know, I care about him in the comics.
Jeremy Renner.
I do not care about him within the MCU franchise. And I know, technically speaking, this is maybe supposed to fix that. But the person I am interested in these is Kate. I have no interest in Pizza Dog, because if there's not Pizza Dog, I will riot.
Pizza Dog, and there's also I have a feeling it's going to at least be using the Fraction Aja run as inspiration, because there are all these set pictures of people in tracksuits and stuff, and him in a rundown apartment building. So it's gotta have that vibe to it.
I really, one of the comics that I have read in more recent years was Kelly Thompson's West Coast Avengers, and I'd really love to see them do an ensemble later on and explore that in a Disney Plus show too. That, bringing Kate into the world gives me hope that we'll see that sometime. And
Kate's a great character. I mean, Kate was even in the comics, in that Fraction run, which Clint's great in the Fraction run, the standout star of run is Kate. Like that's the person everyone walked away from,
Yes.
you know, like being excited about. So it's very, very cool. And like, and as Brian said, you know, Ms. Marvel is coming this year as well, which is just nuts as well.
Canadian talent.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I don't even know, I'm not sure what the next episode of What If is at this point, but what I've heard is that it just keeps getting a little like crazier is kind of what it's supposed to happen.
Is it, do you know offhand how
10?
many episodes they're doing for
10,
the first
I think
season?
it's 10. I believe it's 10.
Okay. I'm really bad at like looking all of this up in advance now.
Yeah.
Like I just have given up on.
Well, like the What If thing for me is like I'm excited about it. I'm happy that it's on, and I'm going to enjoy watching it, you know, every week. But it's not like, and maybe this will change if like the tendrils of it start to like give like a full momentum to some sort of like overall plot. Not necessarily that I want that to even happen, but like if that happens, like then I'll care like, oh, how many episodes are left? Like what I was with Loki. I'm like, there's only 2 episodes left. What's going to happen? You know, with this, I'm just kind of like, okay, every week I'm just going to watch it and I'm going to enjoy it. And then I'll just like go about my merry way, which is totally fine for me. One of my big defenses on Black Widow was like, I'm happy that it's like just its own thing and it doesn't have to worry about setting anything up or paying anything off. It just has to be a movie about this character doing stuff. Like, and I was like totally fine with that. And I love the connected stuff. Don't get me wrong. I love all that stuff. I love talking about that stuff, but like sometimes I'm okay with it just being its own thing.
I know. I'm like, on one hand, I've talked about this with you forever, where I'm even with like Star Wars stuff, I'm like, just let things exist on their own. Just let them do their own thing. Please, I beg of you. And like, I liked Black Widow a lot. I watched it like 2 times, like back to back. I really enjoyed it. Had those big The Americans vibes to me, and like clearly that like intro was so inspired by that. It just made me a little bit mad, you know, like they've really did Black Widow dirty in Endgame, and just Scarlett Johansson too for not giving her a movie before this. And I don't know, you know, I really enjoyed it, but it did make me a little bit resentful that it took so long to get to this. And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole right now, but I do wish more of the movies just stood alone. I wish they could have done like a whole series of like Black Widow like adventures as an aside. Like, oh, here's our James Bond. Like, we'll just have her do these cool espionage things. I would have been so into that. And you know, it's disappointing. Obviously, we could maybe have that with Yelena, but
yeah, absolutely,
it's a shame.
It absolutely is a shame. And you know, what I said on the show when we reviewed it was basically like, I agree with you. Like it was not right that it took so long for her to get her own movie, all those things. But I tried to just like sit there and watch it and not have all those things like clouding it for me, because you know, it's not like Kate Herron's fault or whatever that happened. You know what I mean? Or Scarlett Johansson's fault. You know, so it's like
totally.
you know,
I just watched it and enjoyed it for sure. But it was, you know, you couldn't help but pause a couple times and just be like, dang.
I mean, you also really know, right, that like Marvel. It's this thing too. It sucks too, you know, is like if. Let's say Black Widow hadn't been like in the original grouping, right? And Scarlett Johansson had joined like before Infinity War or something, right? With like the new whatever this new group of decision makers is at Marvel, she would have gotten a movie maybe even before she was in an Avengers movie, you know, or she would have showed up in a movie like in a Captain America movie, and then the next year would have had her own movie or whatever, like whatever would have happened, like they've done with other characters. She just that early time, like with that old sort of like decision-making group, like it just was never going to happen. Like they were not going to let there to be movies with people of color or movies starring women. It just was not going to happen. And it just sucks that, I mean, I'm not going to cry for Scarlett Johansson. She's had a good career and a good life.
Yeah. She's not dead. Like she's not dead.
She's having a baby. Like, she's had a baby, I guess, or whatever. They just announced it or whatever on Twitter. Yeah, with Colin Jost or whatever. The Saturday Night Live guy. Well, he's one of like the weekend update anchors or whatever. They're married. They've been married for a while. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah,
I don't know who that is, but
yeah.
good for him. Good
Yeah.
for
You know,
her.
and I think there's a lot to be said about like her journey in those movies, the character's journey in those movies, and like I do think that once she sort of and the end of Endgame aside, once she sort of like got into the Russo's hands, the character became much better. Forgetting about once it was in that era, the character was definitely better. But yeah, she was the. I mean, Hawkeye obviously didn't get his own movie either, but she was the standout from that era that just didn't get anything until now, and it did feel like it was sort of like, well, like it's the last chance, so we got to give her a movie.
Yeah. I don't think Jeremy Renner
did not. He seemed like an asshole
favors on those press tours.
Yeah.
And he was not like, people were like, yeah, Hawkeye, and then he'd go out on the press tours, and then people were like, we don't like Hawkeye. So yeah, he was definitely, people weren't really clamoring.
I mean, she didn't do herself any, not on the Marvel stuff, but her other like comments, she didn't do herself a lot of favors.
No, she had the fact that Black Widow is like such a popular character, and that the fact that everyone knew she was again done dirty by not being given a movie.
Yeah, we can talk. There's a lot to talk about in there, but we can skip that discussion, and we can wrap this podcast up.
Yeah. Who knew we could talk for long periods of time, Bobby, about comics?
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy. Stephanie, I want you to tell people, pimp all your wares for the people at home.
Okay. Well, you can mostly find my stiffs online at stephaniecooke.ca. That's everywhere that I am elsewhere. I'm at Hello Cookie on Twitter and Instagram. That's where I'm most active. I have a brand new middle grade graphic novel that came out in July, called Paranorthern and the Chaos Bunny Hopcalypse, Bobby. It's a pun.
Yes, I know.
And you can go to paranorthern.net to learn more about that. And I'm very, very proud of that one. So if you're so inclined, you can go check that out.
What's the name of the Caper podcast?
Oh, Capercast. And you can go to capercast.com, because I'm addicted to buying domains, and that'll take you to where you need to go.
You can find me on Twitter at Bobby Shortle. You can find all our archives of these podcasts and any of the streams that we do at misadventure.land. Speaking of domains that I recently purchased, Stephanie.
Well, I could, if I had known you didn't already just go around buying domains, I would have told you to do so. So I'm happy you figured that out.
I will be back, I don't know, probably early next week to play some more Metroid, and then Justin will be back next week. We'll be back on a regular podcast. But thank you.
Just kidding, not taking over.
But thank you so much, Stephanie, for stepping in and helping out and doing this with me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you to everybody who's been watching and listening. Until next time, be good to one another. Later.
These two great